I'm pulling out a freshly baked Blondie bar. Blondies are one of my favorites. They're like a chocolate chip cookie with a brownie, but blonde, super buttery, vanilla, tons of chocolate. Let me show you how easy, wonderful, and one bowl these are. Can't wait to make them. Blondies are really a chocolate chip cookie in bar form, which means they need to have all those wonderful elements you love about chocolate chip cookie. Slightly crispy around the edge, ooey gooey, maybe not ooey gooey if you're a certain cookie person, but slightly gooey in the center, and that's what these Blondies are. Now, I used to work in a camp kitchen in high school, and we would make massive sheet pans of Blondies, and guess what? They're pretty much everyone's favorite because they're simple, they have notes of vanilla, buttery, delicious. Are you ready to make them? It's pretty simple. So to start, we're gonna take some butter, and instead of creaming it with sugars, we're gonna put it in a little saucepan here, and we're gonna melt this. The reason we're melting it is, this is gonna give us that correct consistency we want in these Blondies, which is kind of slightly gooey in the center. So we're gonna melt it and then keep going. The butter melted, and now I just wanna let it cool slightly before I just mix everything together or mix it with the eggs, because obviously butter is warm once it's melted. You don't wanna cook eggs. So we're gonna start by taking the eggs and just cracking them in the bowl. So what I love about Blondies is they hit the spot, whether it's after school, whether it's having some friends over. Blondies are always good, and they're always in season. They don't have a season. So I'm cracking them both right in, and the reason I wanna crack the eggs in first is I wanna mix them up and make sure they're well combined. So you just easily whisk them, and you don't have to worry about them getting frothy. You just wanna get them nice and combined so now everything else can be added in. So once the eggs are mixed, we're gonna add in brown sugar. Now there is a high ratio of brown sugar. That's gonna give us that caramely, chewy, molassesy note that you want. That's why brown sugar in these is, like, to me, essential. That's what gives you that iconic flavor you want. And with the brown sugar, you need some vanilla. Like, we're gonna be adding chocolate, obviously, and we have butter, but the vanilla is really what will bring out all that goodness, and that's what I love. So I'm going to let this now mix together and make sure I get all those pieces of the brown sugar. Now, if you have any bits of brown sugar that don't want to dissolve, let them sit a little bit in this mixture. They'll absorb that liquid and they'll get all soft and gooey. Now, once we have all that coming together, we have the butter. So I wanted to let it sit until, you don't want it to be hot. We have eggs in here. So the thing is, if you would add it just to hot eggs, you're gonna have cooked eggs. You don't want that. So I'm gonna stir this together, and then we'll put in the dry ingredients. You can see this easily comes together, and look at that consistency. Now, this is not a cookie consistency. We haven't added the dry ingredients either, but there's a reason. You want this to be a little bit different than a cookie, and that's what's gonna give us that delicious texture. When it comes to things like bars, Blondies, originally they were called bar cookies. And the reason is because they were pretty much a cookie batter, but in bar form. And so we now just usually call them bars, but when I'm trying to make sure I get my flour in there, I say this in videos, but I think it's a good reminder. Scoop and lightly let it fall into your measuring cup if you're using dry measures like this instead of, your weights, and then just level it off. That way you don't pack it in there. So we have our flour. We are gonna put in a small amount of baking powder. This isn't necessarily normal in a Blondie, but I do think it gives it a little bit lighter texture, and I do like it just a little bit. And of course, don't question it, you need salt. I always use kosher salt in both my baking, my cooking. It happens to be just what I have around. So we're gonna stir this together, and we're just gonna combine it. And what this is gonna slowly do now is change the whole texture. And when you're bringing those dry ingredients together, I still like to use a whisk a lot of times because it falls through those tines, and you can see how it just combines it really easily. You don't need to over whisk it or mix it. You don't need to over mix it. And it just, look at that. You have this beautiful batter. And again, notice it's slightly more thin than a cookie batter would be. That's what you want. That's what a Blondie is. So when it comes to Blondies, you see some that will have white chocolate chips. Some will have chocolate chips. These are chocolate. But I think I like the convergence of not just chocolate chips, but some pieces of chocolate. And the reason is it gives you that more elevated, it's that beauty of shards of bigger pieces of chocolate. So I go through and just roughly chop up a bar of chocolate, and I want some of these pieces left bigger and irregular. So then when it bakes, you have these pockets of melty, gooey chocolate. So I'm just gonna chop this up, and we're gonna fold all this in and bake it. So once I have all that chocolate somewhat chopped up, you are gonna notice that I'm gonna take all the pieces and put them right in here, but if you notice these really little fine bits at the end, almost like a powder, I am gonna leave those. I'm just gonna eat those or add them on top of some granola or something because those can sometimes make this a little bit muddled. I want the big pieces and the shards. And then with that, some chocolate chips. Now I did say this was gonna be chocolate. So I wanna make sure I have a good amount. And you can see I'm just folding these in now, making sure it's well combined with them. Look, this is what is great. It's all in a bowl. You don't need a mixer. You can come home maybe with your kids from school, maybe just after a long day. We know how those days are. And you can make these. Now, you could really gourmet these up, make them really thick. You could put them in a smaller pan so they're super thick like a bakery. Or you could be more Midwestern style like I'm gonna be here and make a nice big pan of them. They're gonna be a little bit more thin, but this is traditional because you don't need a massive thick blondie. You just want one that kind of encompasses all of those beautiful edges and bits. Personally, I'm gonna be honest, there's edge people and there's middle people. I'm kind of on, I like the corners. I like those bits of it that get a little bit more crisp, but if you're a corner person, what's nice is here, a big pan will give you ample opportunities. So just spread them out evenly, which you can see, look at that thick batter. This is all these little moments, like a thick batter that has this consistency and is almost glossy. This is gonna give us those fudgy brownies we all know and love. It falls somewhat on its own, but helping it like this makes sure they're gonna bake evenly. And that's why we're spreading it out, and I'm using an offset spatula to do that, because you want them to bake evenly. So I'm spreading it. See how simple that is? Now, even over here, these are little things that sound stupid, but if you come through and you knock that down, that will just look better. It won't burn on there, and you'll have a nicer than finish. I just think things like that can be important. So we're gonna pop these in the oven. We're gonna let them cool. They smell good already, but then we're gonna eat them. And now you can see how easy and quick and beautiful blondies are. I did sprinkle a few of the remaining chocolate chips on top. Forgot to say that, just because obviously it draws you in more and makes you want them. I let them cool then too. So they will puff up slightly, but then as they cool, they kind of just settle back in. This is the beautiful part, and you want to let them cool so they slice better. Otherwise, they don't slice the best if they're too warm, because they actually finish baking like anything does once it's outside of the oven. So you want to let them finish. So sometimes getting that first one out is a little bit of a, oh no, that's all good. Look at that beautiful blondie. If that isn't just like a delicious thing, you can see it's moist, you can see it's delicious. We can just go in with hands now. Oh my goodness. It's like a really good chocolate chip cookie and your favorite brownie had a marriage and they created this. Look at those big, beautiful pockets of chocolate. They're still melty, both from the chocolate chips and those shards we put in. It's a small little thing, but it's worth it. It makes a big difference. What I love about it is, it has a beautiful moist crumb. It's not just like falling apart, it holds it together well, but it has this butteriness with that vanilla. That's good. That's gonna be hard just to have one. You're gonna wanna have multiple, or imagine it with like some vanilla ice cream. So what do I hope you do with this? I hope you indulge. I hope you see that it's super easy to make delicious goods at home. You don't always have to buy them. You don't have to go to a bakery. You can make them, you can enjoy them, and you can share them around. That's the important part. Good food should bring people together. So share this video so other people can see it too. Check my website, wiseguy.com, for this recipe. All my other recipes, they're all on there to enjoy, because that's the point. Have fun.